Sandra Stotsky and Jim Milton talked about equality. That is the issue that matters most to me. My personal history before Pioneer is that I was involved in education directly as a teacher, also ran a prep school in Japan. And I think I know a little something about international competitiveness and about how to run a school and what other countries are doing. I've also studied the standards in Europe, especially Italy, France, and England. So I think I have a pretty good sense of where a lot of these folks are trying to aim. Some not so well, including France and Italy. So when I think about this issue of quality, you have the two most respected experts that spoke to you yesterday. I'd like to add just a couple of quick points. And this is regarding your decision, the decision before you, to adopt Massachusetts standards which are truly internationally competitive and benchmarked. And that is, if you adopt Common Core, what you're doing is you're getting a set of standards, and the proponents will tell you you have lots of flexibility. It is a floor. You can go beyond that. You have flexibility of 15%. Right? The problem with that argument, even in terms of 15% flexibility, is this. The Common Core does require 85% verbatim adoption of Common Core standards. The PARCC test or the SBAC test only what's in Common Core. So even if you add on great literature or great US history or great science into your standards, the tests will not test those materials. Okay? If you're a teacher and you're going to be evaluated on your students' performance on Common Core tests, guess what you're not going to teach? You're not going to teach the add-ons. So Massachusetts has done great work adding in Moby Dick, Dickens, all these great literary works because we were disappointed with the reading offerings in Common Core. But guess what? If I was a teacher and I'm going to be evaluated, my job's going to be evaluated on this material and not that material, out the door goes Dickens, out the door goes X, Y, and Z. That's only natural. That's what the system will do. So the flexibility to improve upon Common Core is not there. If you take the path of using Massachusetts as a foundation, developing your own standards, you can always innovate. And again, I would say Massachusetts standards are wonderful, but you ought to do something even beyond that, because you can, and there are weaknesses in Massachusetts standards. Finally, let me talk a little bit about Common Core's impact on school choice. And you have been a leader in this effort to drive more school choice. So states across the country have been expanding school choice, and it is really important to empower parents. We know that parents who are engaged in teacher quality are the two major factors in driving student achievement. So we want parents engaged. I am really concerned that Common Core will encroach upon key aspects of private school instruction and curriculum. I wonder what choice means when all roads lead back to Common Core. It's worth stepping back for a second and thinking about America and our way of doing school choice. So when we fund school choice, we fund parents. You might give them a voucher, you might give them a tax credit, you give them money they can travel and choose their own school. Right? That's a great thing. Look at Europe. Look at how France does school choice, which has nominally much more school choice than we can here. But how do they do that? Their central government funds private institutions directly. They don't fund parents. When they fund the private institution, what they do is they say to the private institution, we've given you money, now here's our accountability standards, you're going to teach exactly what we want. Right? That's very different from here. Right? It's different in a number of different ways. So in Ohio, Indiana, and Louisiana, some other states, as we've seen expansion of vouchers or other school choice vehicles, we see often requirements that private schools give the state-based test for accountability purposes. That's how the money's tied up. That is, I think, very worrisome in the sense of, in the case of Common Core, because the Common Core aligned tests are not the traditional norm reference tests that we see in these private schools. Common Core tests are curriculum driving tests. They're not meant to be norm reference, and a little more, if you will, ecumenical on the materials that are taught. So what you will be doing is driving a specific curriculum into these private schools. I think that undoes a lot of that American way of doing choice, and frankly, I prefer it, much prefer it, to what the Europeans are doing in their schools. So just let me close with a couple things. Massachusetts seems some great things. It's not just Massachusetts, lots of folks. You heard about California in terms of math. There are many states. I love to brag about Massachusetts, a great state, notwithstanding some stuff. But there's no one pathway. There's no one pathway. There's no scientific method to doing education reform. In our case, we did high standards, great tests, teacher certification, the best public charter schools in the country. We have fantastic desegregation programs that are working phenomenally. The federal government has no such record of success. Think about what you would consider a federal success in education. I would also urge you to think about those people who will be testifying in front of you next week. She's incorporated Fordham Institute, and frankly, I say this with deep respect for the individual, even Jeb Bush in Florida. What kind of success have they had? I mean, Florida, to this day, while it has solid improvement in fourth grade reading, it's around 10th in the country in fourth grade reading. Its eighth grade reading is dismal, between 30th and 40th in the country. So I'd urge you to look at places that actually have empirical evidence behind them to drive your own thinking about this. Again, I'd also just ask you, why would you give up the power to innovate if you're spending all this money? I'd also ask you, is community college readiness really such a wonderful goal that you would give up that autonomy? I believe that you can do better. I think 597 sets you on that road to do much better. It's a strong path. I'm actually excited about this bill. And let me tell you why. Recently I was in Pennsylvania talking to folks about Common Core. And I said to them, you guys had some of the worst standards in the country. So actually Common Core is a step up for you. Right? But you know what the challenge is? You guys need to say not just no to Common Core, you have to say yes to something. Saying no is not enough. Our country, the reason why people thought about Common Core is because we've not shown the progress we need to show. But I'm putting it on you and asking you to please improve 597. Do what you need to do, and we're happy to help and think through with you, provide any kind of advice, serve as a resource to help you think through what we see in different states is working. But this is an exciting bill, because it actually says not just no, right? It's trying to strike a path toward truly world-class standards and world-class expectations, which your students deserve. We need Ohio in the game of creating businesses, being successful, and creating great citizens. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your